Your strength in the Chicago soy complex continues to benefit canola, and there's additional support from higher European rapeseed values. Meanwhile, Malaysian palm oil is slightly lower. The Canadian dollar is virtually unchanged this morning. After the loonie pushed to nearly 79 US cents, it slipped back to 78.73 compared to Tuesday's close of 78.70. The Canadian Grain Commission reports producer deliveries of canola are nearly 373,000 tons for the week ending January 3rd. Exports exceed 101,000 tons, and domestic usage is almost 355,000 tons. The United States Department of Agriculture reports a private sale of 204,000 tons of soybeans to China. Delivery is to be during the current marketing year. The markets could become choppy ahead of the next supply and demand estimates from the USDA. The department's report is scheduled to be released on Tuesday at 11 a.m. Central. The average trade guess lowers corn ending stocks by nearly 6% at 1.6 billion bushels. The carryover for wheat is projected to dip 0.35% at 859 million bushels, and the carryout for soybeans is expected to fall more than 20% at 139 million bushels. The Buenos Aires Grain Exchange says Argentina's corn crop rates 12% good to excellent. That's a drop of 5 points from the previous report. The exchange also says Argentina's soybean crop is down from 42% good to excellent to 27%. And the exchange is reducing its estimate of Argentina's wheat crop by nearly 1.2% at 17 million tons. Rounding off prices at the Chicago Board of Trade, soybean futures are higher on Friday morning. The March soybean contract is up 12 cents at $13.67 per bushel. March soy oil is down nearly 0.2 of a cent at 43.61 US cents per pound. March soy meal is up $2.40 at 434.60 per hundredweight. Corn futures are relatively steady on Friday morning, with the March contract up a half cent at 494.5 per bushel. Chicago oats are slightly higher, with the March contract up a penny at 3.56 per bushel. Wheat futures are lower on Friday morning. Chicago March is down 4.5 cents at 6.38. Kansas City March is down 7 cents at 5.92. And Minneapolis March is down 4.5 cents at 5.99. That's a look at the ICE futures and the Chicago markets for Friday morning, January 8th. For Markets Farm in Winnipeg, I'm Glenn Halleck.
See more and do more in a new 300 Series compact track loader from New Holland. Its industry-leading 360-degree visibility is truly something to see at Butler Farm Equipment in Fort St. John. With its reverse camera and 8-inch multi-function LCD display, super boom lift technology, rock-solid stability, and redesigned controls, you'll work with greater speed, safety, and precision. Maximum productivity starts with a clear view. Stop by Butler Farm Equipment in Fort St. John today and see how a new 300 Series compact track loader helps you do more.
The opinions expressed during this show do not represent those of this station. If you've missed any of this show, you can follow the podcast at Energeticcity.ca. Now, an in-depth look at the news and information shaping our community. This is Moose Talks with your host, Doug Craig, on Moose FM.
Good morning. Welcome to the first episode of Moose Talks in the new year. Happy New Year to you. Thank you for joining us. We're talking property assessments today, and so a little later on, we're going to be joined by Fort St. John City Councillor Trevor Bolin to talk about what those assessments mean for the city and for the real estate market as well. He's going to wear two hats for us today. But to start us off, we thought we'd chat with somebody who's done some of the assessments up here in northern BC for BC Assessment. Joining us now from Prince George is Jarret Krantz, a deputy assessor with BC Assessment. Jarret, thank you so much for being on Moose Talks.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, why don't we start first by having you explain a bit about what you do? I mean, this might be a loaded question, but can you explain to us how you assess the value of a property?
Yeah, the assessments are done by looking at market transactions. So we look at sales of similar properties, and then the assessment is really just an estimate of the market value as of July 1st of the previous year. So for this current assessment that we're looking at right now, the assessment will be an estimate of the market value as of July 1st of 2020.
I see. Now you say similar properties. Do you look at similar properties, say, like if we're using Fort St. John for an example, in different neighborhoods, or is it kind of in the same area you're only looking at? Or I mean, I guess better question, define what you mean by a similar property.
Yeah, a similar property, depending on the property type, can have many different meanings. So it's a great question. So we'll look for comparable sales that have the most similar attributes to the property that we're assessing. So let's say, for example, if it's a single family residential house with a 2-car garage and on a standard flea lot, then what we're going to look at is sales with those types of attributes in as close location as we can, so we can take into consideration the value of that specific location. Now, of course, when you get out into the rural areas, you have less sales evidence, you have less similar properties, so you're still looking at what the values of the properties are selling for in those areas, but the attributes might not be exact, and that's where sort of a range of an estimated value comes into play.
Okay, I'm going to return to the numbers in just a bit here, but I thought we'd talk a bit about the numbers specifically for Northern BC. Can you tell us how kind of assessments have been this year? Have things gone up, gone down, given that we now kind of had a year of COVID?
Yeah, well, for Northern BC, for our entire region, we have seen in general a fairly moderate increase. Anywhere between 0 and 10% is generally what we're seeing. Mm-hmm. More specifically for Fort St. John, Dawson Creek area, we've actually seen a slight decrease in the Fort St. John area. Dawson Creek is very stable, almost no movement in the market there. Fort St. John, I believe it was maybe a minus 1%, sort of in general. But even though we went through the year of COVID, what we've seen is the markets have been busy. The amount of sales transactions that we saw through March, April, and May were really low, so there weren't as many sales there. But then it picked up significantly after that in June, July, and August, all the way through to the end of the year. And we ended up as a region almost with the same amount of sales as we had the year before. So a very active market and lots of sales for our appraisers to analyze.
Now, you say it's as of July 1st, 2020. That's sort of what the assessed value is supposed to represent. Does that mean you only look at, say, these market transactions, these similar properties, what their values were kind of before July 1st, or will it include, more of the balance of the year? As you say, for example, when the market picked up in kind of the summer months, would it include all of the transactions that happen over those summer months, or just until July?
Yeah, no, we will look at all sales throughout the year to give us the best estimate of value for the property, because the more information we have and the more information our appraisers can analyze, the more accurate we'll be with the assessments. What we will do is, if there's a real significant change in the market throughout the year, we'll look at time adjusting to that July 1st date. And what that means is, if there's like a real significant noticeable increase or decrease in the market from, say, June to December, we'll look at those December sales. We'll still look at the November, December sales, but we'll sort of move them back to what they may have been selling for in July.
Interesting. All right. Can you account really for why, say, as you said, numbers have generally been up, but why they've kind of been down a bit in Fort St. John? Or is it purely based on the math? Houses sold for a little bit less than they were, I guess, last year. So in general, the assessed values, again, in general, went down a bit.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is, Doug, is at BC Assessment, we don't get into really speculating on the why the market's moving. We're really experts on reporting out what the market has done. So we look at those sales, we look at the market evidence that we can that's available to us, and this year, in general, it showed that the market was down just a little bit from last year.
Okay. Now, if you've got a property that maybe you compare last year or maybe even a couple of years ago, sometimes assessment kind of goes up and down on the same piece of property, even if you've done nothing to it in some cases. And I mean, you might have the same answer, but what kind of can account for that? Why would that happen kind of between years when you might feel as a homeowner, you're like, I have the exact same house I did last year. Why is it suddenly worth less in the kind of BC assessment's mind than it was a year before?
Yeah, yeah, that's a really great question, and it's something that we do talk to property owners about quite a bit. So the main reason that you will see a difference in the property values is the market movement and what the comparable sales are saying for that year. But there will be times when we do reassessment projects, when we look and take a deeper look. We can do inventory changes. We can do updates on inventory where maybe we didn't know. Say someone had finished their basement a few years ago, and then we learn that that's the case, and that adds value to that property. Or we can just do like a reassessment where maybe in previous years. The assessment was at one level, but as we take a closer, deeper look at the inventory and what the sales are showing, it can move a little bit through those sort of audits and reassessments.
Oh, I'm glad you brought up reassessment. That was going to be my next question. Say, as a homeowner, you disagree with the assessed value of your home. What's kind of your recourse? What can they do about that?
Yeah, and this is perfect time to talk about this. So if someone disagrees when they see their assessment, please, first thing to do would be to look at our website, bcassessment.ca. It's a great tool. It improves every year. There's lots of information there on similar sales, on assessment information. And then, from there, if there's still questions or disagreements on the assessment, please give our office a call and talk to the appraiser. We're set up to be taking calls right now, and we'll get the appraiser talking with property owners and discuss individual properties and reasons for the different assessments. From that, and it does happen. There still can be a disagreement for that value on the assessment. There's independent review panel that people can submit an appeal to, and that's called the Property Assessment Review Panel. And the deadline to submit that appeal is February 1st this year. And all the information to submit that appeal is on our website at bcassessment.ca, and it's really easy. It's an online form, and go ahead and submit that.
All right, and bearing that in mind, a lot of it's online anyway. I mean, has there been any big changes kind of in the appeal process due to COVID to kind of keep everybody safe that are notable?
Yeah, there has. Over the last few years, we've been using virtual panels where the appellant as well as us and the panel all call in to a panel, so you don't have to go in face to face.
Yeah.
That's worked really well, and this year we've expanded that out to 100% telepanel options, and so it's a really good improvement as far as I'm concerned, because it allows property owners to attend hearings without having to travel to major centers where the panels were heard in person before, and allows them to do it from their office or from their home, and just get their information heard by that independent panel.
All right, Jarret, one last thing. You tell us the website address one more time, please.
Yeah, it's bcassessment.ca. So bcassessment.ca.
Excellent, Jarret. Well, I really appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk to us about this. It's always important when it comes out this time of year, and people always have lots of questions. So thank you for joining us on Moose Talks this morning.
Yeah, great. Thanks a lot for the invite. This has been great, and we'll talk to you later.
Absolutely. That's Jarret Krantz, the Deputy Assessor, Northern BC Region with BC Assessment. All right, we'll be talking to City Councillor Trevor Bolin right after this on Moose Talks. Complete Safety Services, with 10 years serving the Peace area, they strive to offer the best safety service in the oil and gas industry. Complete Safety Services specializes in safety with their experienced field safety advisors and medics. Complete Safety Services can prepare companies for their core, develop written safety programs, and manage ISN and comply works.
Complete Safety Services also offers traffic control, hotshot, and pilot car services on 93rd Street. Look them up online, CompleteSafety.ca. As a 100% Indigenous-owned company, they are proud to support the oil and gas industry.
There's always something going on in the Energetic City, and the staff from the City of Fort St. John Recreation Department have planned a variety of exciting programs and events. Here's what's coming up.
Start this new year off by taking part in the 21-day challenge. Do something small every day to start the year off in a positive way. Follow the City of Fort St. John Recreation Facebook page for daily challenges.
For more information on this event, view the Recreation and Leisure Guide at fortstjohn.ca or follow the City of Fort St. John Recreation on Facebook.
Here in Fort St. John, we've already experienced just how cold winter can get. So at Graphic Signs and Auto Designs, they carry a range of remote starts by Astro Start. Stop in and see the options, including Smart Start, where you can start your vehicle with your phone using Bluetooth. Astro Start Remote Start's a must-have when you live in northern BC. Get yours today from Graphic Signs and Auto Designs, now in their new location on Alaska Road. Check out GraphicSignsFSJ.com.
Watch this show live on Facebook or download the podcast at Energeticcity.ca.
Welcome back to Moose Talks. Now we're going to talk about the property assessment side of things when it comes to the city and to the real estate market with Fort St. John City Councillor and real estate agent Trevor Bolin. How's it going today, Trevor? Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you very much for joining us. I haven't counted how many times you've been on here, but it's been a lot.
It's been a lot. I'm always glad to be here.
Excellent. Well, why don't we start with the city side of things? So if you can put your counselor hat on for a minute, can you explain, how these assessments affect property taxes and taxation that the city does?
Yeah, for sure, Dub. And I think that's the biggest thing is a lot of people don't know the differences between, say, true market value, versus assessed value. So the assessed value given by BC Assessment Authority in the province of British Columbia is your home's value in July of that previous year based on comparable sales that's used for determining the revenue for what's actually going to come in for taxes. So, if your home's assessed at $350,000, whatever the mill rate or the tax rate is set at for that year is what determines what your taxes are at. So, that's the difference between, your house being assessed at $350 and your taxes are $3,500, or, $3,700 at $370,000.
I see. Okay. Now, I guess we're going to talk more about kind of the putting the house on the market side of things in just a minute. But back to the city, if assessments have dropped in general around Fort St. John, and again, it's in general, does that mean that the city's going to have to compensate for that in kind of property taxes for this year by saying, well, we were expecting this much, assessments went down, we're going to have less revenue from that source than we expected?
And that's exactly how we have to look at it. People need to realize that the Fort St. John market, the real estate in Fort St. John was one of the hottest markets across Western Canada and quite easily into the entire country for a numerous amount of years. And we've spent, 2016 through till now with decreases in assessed values, which of course means, less revenue than what we're looking at the year before. So, budget time, and that's what we're getting into right now. And that's why we've always made it as open and transparent and public meetings and, everything, whether it's Facebook Live or shows like this, is to help people to realize that part of council's job during this time of the year is to go, okay, if we've got a 2% decrease in, what our revenue would be based on the assessments or based on the tax roll, that's where it starts to get challenging. And we start to look at, okay, what do we need to do in order to ensure that it doesn't hurt families? And last year was a prime example. We had a decrease in the assessed value. We had a proposed increase, of just less than 2%. Council reached out to the community. We heard back from the community. The community said, it's COVID, times are tough. The industries haven't gone full bore again. This isn't the right time. So, council scrapped that increase and looked at what we could eliminate in order to ensure that it didn't affect families. And that's what we do and what we will continue to do.
Okay. So now I want to switch gears kind of to the real estate perspective, which you've already sort of touched on. The assessment, as you say, doesn't really affect the value of your property when you put it on the market. Now, can that be explained for a variety of reasons, I should say, including kind of the time of year when your house goes on the market, for example?
You know what, Dub? That's a great question, and 2020 was a prime example of that. We came into 2020. It was a hop in January. We had pretty wicked cold February, which slowed us down a little bit, and then boom, welcome to a COVID type of real estate market. So, we really had a bit of a suffering between March into June, and then assessed values now are based on July, and then it doesn't take into the rest of the market. So, when you start to look at the differences between those two, it is quite substantial. And I've had a ton of people reach out and say, what, my home's down in value. I'm not going to be able to sell it. It dropped $40,000 in the assessed value. And my biggest message to them is, your assessed value really has zero correlation even to what your market value is. So if I were to give you a kind of a full snapshot, 2020 was actually a better year for sales than 2019 was. Mm-hmm. That's not what the assessments show, and that's not what people see. But we sold $187 million worth of real estate in the Fort St. John market in 2020, up from 179 in 2019. More units sold, and if you look at the entirety as far as the year goes, we actually finished off the year 2% higher than we did in 2019. So assessments tell you that your home is down 2%, but it's not taking in, that July to December time of the market, where in Fort St. John, September through to December is oftentimes a pretty robust market.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. So then I guess my next question was, if I'm going to ask you to help me sell my home and be my realtor, I mean, what do you tell me then if my market value is down? Then how do you, I guess, account for saying this is actually what you should be selling your house at then, given that it's this time of year, these are the houses in kind of the area? How do you determine that if you have to ignore kind of the BC assessed value of it?
For sure. And we always, nothing against BC assessment, but we always ignore the BC assessment value of it because, for them looking at a home, not being able to enter it, not even going on the property, they have a very difficult job. And I don't think a lot of people understand how hard it is to come up with a value on a home. And that's why oftentimes we'll see that they're, literally 6 months to a year out on what some of those values are right out the gate. But when you have a realtor come to your home, a realtor's going to come to your home, they're going to walk through the home, they're going to hear about the improvements you've made, the updates you've made. They're then going to go back and they're going to look at those comparable sales to your home. So square footage, area, finishing, even as far as the age, or what we call the effective age, because a lot of times you'll have a home that's 50 years old, but you'd never tell that it's over 5 years, right? So the effective age is what plays a part. We can then come up with a market value driven on demand, right? So, and that's why our market changes fast. And the Fort St. John market, I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I've never seen a market quite like ours where, literally you could find 3 to 5% increases in a single month, let alone, most markets in the province or even in Western Canada, look at that over the course of a year. So, your best bet is always to have either an accredited appraiser come up with that value, or a very active realtor that's in the market that's going to know what those values are. And even at this point in time, we say the same thing to folks when they question about their assessment is, if you really think it's out to the point where it affects you personally or financially, then have somebody give you a value on that home so you've got the information. A lot of people will, they're afraid or they're maybe more knowledgeable about challenging the BC assessment value. And it's not a scary process. It's not a hard process. You just have to have your facts. And part of those facts is you being able to look at what those comparable sales are based on the information of being in the home, seeing the finishing, seeing what those comparables are, and then presenting that information. And at the end of the day, it could end up being quite a substantial drop that you find between what that assessed value is and what that true market value is, depending on which way it goes.
All right. I want you to put your city councillor hat on again for a second. I understand, or I've been made to understand, that there's a difference between sort of how the assessments are done between rural properties and sort of urban properties, inside the city and outside of it, in that you don't have the same kind of amount of information between the two. Is that true? Or are they different in how they're assessed?
They are, and I mean, a part of that is literally the amount of properties that have sold in that area, right? So, when you look at, let's take Matthews Park for an example. You take Matthews Park for there's 430 homes in the entire subdivision of Matthews Park, which dominates about 8 different plans, or square footage sizes throughout that entire subdivision. So when you're looking at values and comparables on that, it's pretty easy to come up with an adjusted value of that based on the fact that you've got 300 other sales that have occurred. When you start looking at properties, say maybe in Charlie Lake, where they're small acreages, or Cecil Lake, or Rose Prairie, North Pine, you've got quarter sections, you've got half sections, you've got different size of houses, shops, whether water plays a part, whether oil revenue plays a part from leases. It is a completely different ball game, and recreation's no different, whether it's on the lake or on the river, or wherever that ends up being. So, as far as values, in the city of Fort St. John, or any municipality, as far as that goes, it is certainly an easier task than it is to come up with those values on rural properties.
All right, and one final question for you, Trevor. The BC government's apparently changed how the the homeowner's grant is dispersed. I guess before you could go straight to City Hall, say, I've applied for it. They give you kind of the break on the taxes. You collect it later from the BC government, right? You being the city. Now, apparently it's changed that you have to actually go to the government. They are kind of doing kind of all the steps for you. Do you know how that's affected sort of the process for the city in collecting homeowner grants, or for people who want to apply for them to get them?
Yeah, Dub, and that's a good question. It's a really timely question, because a lot of people still don't even know that's occurred. We've pushed, the city and myself. I mean, we've pushed for it to be done electronically for a long time. The 6,500 people to come into the city and stand in line and try to spend their 8 seconds it's going to take for the city to stamp that homeowner's grant and have them sign it. It has always been a daunting task and a daunting process. My hopes in going forward is that the province has looked at the best routes to ensure that this is an easy process, and to ensure that there is not a mix-up of maybe those fees not being accredited on people's accounts. So as far as the actual online process, I think that's brilliant. I think people should be able to do that from home, and I look forward to the day where we could actually just do that on an app. And make that as easy as possible for people to claim their homeowner's grant. But I would say there's probably 85% of people, their taxes are paid through their financial institution that comes out, of their monthly payment. So we need to ensure that that's not affected, because the last thing we want to see is that, those taxes get shortage from either a delay or a hiccup in the system that the province is using, and all of a sudden that ends up on the tax roll because, that smaller portion of 770 or 1070 wasn't credited. So people need to be really diligent going forward, ensure that you have the copies that you've submitted, and when those taxes get paid and that tax comes out of your tax account at your bank, reach out to your bank and just ensure that full amount was submitted. You know what, let's be proactive, especially the first year of this, because we know sometimes when stuff gets rolled out, it's not always in the condition it should be. So be proactive, ensure you ask the right amount of questions, and ensure that full credit gets done.
All right. And offhand, do you happen to know how long it usually takes to kind of get that money back from the province when they then disperse the homeowner grants back to you to get your tax revenue, like the city, I mean?
I do not know that. Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a trying year. I'm sure that, Shirley and the finance department at the city are going to have a lot of extra work cut out for them to ensure that this process does go smoothly for people. But at the end of the day, I think, the city, although we like the change and the move forward and getting into the more technological side of it, we don't want the hiccups, the unanswered questions, the people's worries and concerns. So we're going to do, I think, what we can to ensure that it's done correctly, and that's why my plea would be to people to ensure that they follow up, they're proactive, ensure that it's done in a timely manner, and that those funds get dispersed.
All right, Trevor, we'll have to leave it there. I really appreciate you coming on the show again, sir.
Thanks for having me. We'll see you next time.
Yes, indeed. That's Trevor Bolin, Fort St. John City Councillor and local retailer. We'll be back to wrap things up right after this on Moose Talks.
Big money, big money!
The Neat Bingo Extravaganza is going to be back on Tuesday, January 12th at 7 p.m. Win up to $500 with any one line, $1,000 with any two lines, $1,500 with the large square, and the blackout jackpot of $2,000. Bingo cards are $5 each and available at these fine retailers: Fireweed Market in the former Systems by Trail building, Gateway Esso, Chevron and Charlie Lake, the Taylor Inn Liquor Store, XXX Convenience, and Neat.ca. Save On Foods is no longer selling cards. The Neat Bingo Extravaganza, Tuesday, January 12th at 7 p.m.
BC Gaming Event License number 126599. Know your limit, play within it. 18 plus. Please note that bingo is only available on Facebook at Moose FM and at Energetic City. If you're looking for hassle-free internet services, call the Peace Region Internet Society today. With coverage throughout most of the Peace, PRIS can get you connected quickly without the hassle of contracts or bundles. Visit PRIS.ca or call 1-800-768-3311 for more information.
Our community first. This is Moose Talks with Dub Craig on Moose FM.
Our thanks again to our guests, Jarret Krantz with BC Assessment and Councillor Trevor Bolin for joining us today. To keep up to date on all your city and local news, make sure you check out Energeticcity.ca. You can also download podcasts of this show at Energeticcity.ca/Moose Talks. Please also follow Energeticcity.ca on Facebook. That does it for this first episode of 2021 of Moose Talks. Adam Rayburn is the producer of the show. I'm Dub Craig. Take care of yourselves.
Join us next Friday at 10 a.m. for another episode of Moose Talks, a weekly talk show about Fort St. John and the North Peace.
Energetic Country 100.1 Moose FM.